Good evening and welcome to our special Night at the Movies edition of Huckabee. It's that time of year when families gather for the holidays and usually end up watching a movie together. And the question always comes up, which movie are we going to watch? Well, over the past year, we've had a lot of actors from some great films that have visited the show. And all of these are suitable for the entire family. So think of this as an easy way to preview your next movie night. So grab your popcorn and drink and settle in, because we're going to look back at some of our favorite films of 2024. We kick off the show with two of the stars of the movie Reagan, Jon Voight, who plays Victor Petrovich, and Dennis Quaid, who does an incredible job playing Ronald Reagan. Take a look. Well, I want to tell you both what an absolute honor it is to have you here. You've played, both of you have, but let me start with you, Dennis, because, I've seen you in roles from Jerry Lee Lewis all the way to Ronald Reagan. Now, that's a pretty big spectrum.
Reagan was challenging, and it was just so much involved. I got to work with this man here, Mr. Jon Voight, who is, he was my acting hero. Coming up. It's such a pivotal role he's got. It's a really interesting point of view, the way the story is told through the eyes of a KGB agent, who the KGB actually did keep files on Reagan going so far back into Hollywood and in his time as the president of the Screen Actors Guild. And a very interesting way to tell this story, and of the man who, along with Lech Walesa and the Pope, won the Cold War.
Yeah. There's probably no one whose voice and image has been put on the American scene more than Ronald Reagan's. Does that make it harder to play someone that everybody knows?
Well, when I got offered the role, and a shiver of fear went up my spine. Because, as I told you, he was my favorite president. I voted for him, and I went home, and my roommate, said, "Who'd you vote for?" I said, "Ronald Reagan." He said, "You are kicked out of the hippies." I turned in my card. But he was like Muhammad Ali, too. Everybody in the world knows what Reagan, what he sounds like. And I didn't want to do an impersonation, of course. And so I didn't say yes or no, because I wanted to acting I want to tell, when I play a real person, to tell the story from their point of view. And Reagan was a very private man, besides being the great communicator.
Reagan really was the great communicator and truly a transformational president. Our conversation continued with even more star power when we were joined by Penelope Ann Miller, who played an incredible Nancy Reagan, and the legendary Jennifer O'Neill, who portrayed Reagan's mother, Nell. Penelope, Jennifer, thank you for also being here and sharing with us the incredible story of the movie Reagan. Okay, Penelope, you played Nancy Reagan. Mm-hmm. Complicated person in some ways because, people knew that she was the most protective person for Ronald Reagan that ever lived. She made sure that he was taken care of. Yeah. How did you get into that role? Because you got to be a tough cookie to be Nancy Reagan.
Yes, well, it was very, very challenging and a daunting task. I had big shoes to fill, or little ones, depending on, the shoe size. But it was, as Dennis pointed out, when you're playing somebody so iconic that everybody knows that they've either met or they remember or they've seen videos and, anything, interviews, everyone's going to compare you to that person. And so I feel like I owe it to her legacy as a human being who lived in this world. I needed to honor that. And, not that I had to play her, but it was more that when I played her, I needed to capture her essence. And like Dennis said, I didn't want to do an impersonation, so I did an enormous amount of research. And she even says, when he's assassinated, I should have been there. I always walk on your left side. I don't know, I want to cry, because it's such a beautiful scene that we have after he wakes up from...
Their love story is just, it's very core to the movie. And it's such a beautiful love story, and so authentic.
He wrote her love notes almost every day.
And isn't that an important thing for America to see? Yeah. That there's a couple that embody a wonderful marriage and they love each other and they set an example. I think it's one of the great stories of the Reagan legacy.
They truly had a partnership that was beyond anything I've ever known. And she did. She had his back, and she was fiercely protective, and she loved him. Like, they were in love. And you don't see that a lot.
And Jennifer, I want to talk about the fact that you play Nell, the mother.
Yes.
An important part of this film is weaving in that so much of the values that he ended up embodying for America, those came from his mother. They came from his childhood.
I was the first lady in his life. I was.
You set a good example. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. She was an amazing lady. And in looking at her life and her influence on Ronnie, she would call him, being virtually a single mom because the father had a lot of drinking issues and so forth. She was she was such a strong believer. She was a disciple, she called herself, of Jesus Christ. She was in a lot of plays, so she put the acting bug, I think, in his basket there. And they were very close. And she really instilled a lot of his character and his morals and his ethics that you saw throughout his entire life. So and then you came along, Nancy came along, and that was a beautiful entree. So he had two very strong women in his life.
I think it's important, though, that the whole story of Ronald Reagan is being told. If it had only been his presidency, it would have been a great movie, but it really wouldn't have explained who he is. And I think the brilliance of the film is that we see him, the values he grew up with, the woman who protected him and stood by him no matter what. What a pleasure to chat with four talented actors who are so passionate about their roles in this must-see film. More movie previews are on the way. And next, Joel, Luke, and the Smallbone family will be discussing their very personal film, Unsung Hero. All of that when Huckabee returns. Welcome back to a special Huckabee Night at the Movies. Up next is a project that was a family affair. For King & Country's Joel and Luke Smallbone, they came by to talk about their autobiographical film, Unsung Hero. I have been so looking forward to having this show, getting you guys on and talking about something that I think is amazing. You know, your music is world-changing. You've done books, but now a movie based on the story of your family's life. How did the movie come about?
Yeah, so just to give some context, rewind back, to many, many years ago, seemingly these days, to where we were originally born in Australia. Hopefully you can still tell. It is true, you Americans have jacked up.
I thought that was an Alabama accent. It
Not
sure
quite.
sounded like that.
Though we are from the deep, deep, deep south.
Okay, there you are, yeah.
But it is true, you Americans have jacked up our accent, so thanks for that. But born in Australia, our dad was a concert promoter back there. On one particular tour that he brought back, we lost everything that we had as a family. We lost the house, we lost the car, we lost the life savings. And so Dad was looking for a fresh start for his career, for the family. And so he thought it would be a good idea to move his 6 kids and his wife, who was 6 months pregnant at the time, to Nashville. And that's exactly what we did. But soon after we arrived in Nashville, my dad lost the job opportunity that he had here. And so we were stranded, no friends, no family, sleeping on beds made out of clothes, didn't have any way for our little sister to be born in a hospital. I weren't always quite sure where the next meal was going to come from. Didn't have a car at the time. So the list went on, and I've told that story for quite a number of years at our concerts, and had a lot of people come up and say, "Man, Luke, you should write a book."
Joel, most people know you as the other half for King & Country, but you not only wrote the script of this film, you directed it, and you play the role of your own father, which I find incredibly intriguing, probably more difficult than writing or directing it.
I have dubbed it a very expensive therapy session. It was interesting. We've been doing a lot of reflection lately just because we're right on the precipice of it being released into theaters. And I did not anticipate writing or even co-directing, but as musicians, you kind of have to be all things to all people all the time. You're the writer, you're the performer, you're the producer, you're the marketing. And so it just kind of, the way the cookie crumbled, I just sort of stepped into these roles incidentally. But from the beginning, I had always felt inclined to play Dad. I can't even really explain it. It was Luke came up with the idea in 2020, and called a producer friend and said, what if we start putting this into development? It was one of the first conversations I remember saying, I think it would just be so fascinating. We know Dad so well. I'm roughly Dad's age when he moved now. And so I've always seen this story from, Luke and I were 5 and 7 when we moved. So we've always seen it from a childlike perspective. But to now experience it, not only in writing, but to literally enact the story and put on my shoulders, you know, all of the strain and the stress and the pride and the insecurity and the protectiveness that he felt over the family, and really dive deep into his shoes, man, Governor, it has changed the way I see him. There's a stake in the ground of empathy that started at the production of the film and will take me, I think, to my grave. Yeah.
The family fun continued when Luke and Joel were joined by their mom, Helen Smallbone, and sister Rebecca St. James, all to talk about God's plan that brought them to the States. Helen, in so many ways, this is a film about you and your husband, David, unsung heroes. You came here, the world fell apart for you. You had nothing. I mean, nothing. Not a house, not a car, not a job, income. That's pretty much rock bottom.
Yeah, we lost everything before we left Australia. We came here hoping for a new opportunity, a new start. But yeah, you arrive, you've got your suitcases. We had 16 suitcases. There were 6 of us and I was pregnant. At that point, I had not even been to a doctor. So it's a real, I mean, you're in a very vulnerable scenario.
Were you feeling abandoned by God? Did you ever feel like, Lord, why have you forsaken me?
Actually, no. To tell you the truth, I think when each of us faces a crisis in our lives, it shows us where our foundation is, what's our strength and where does it come from. I mean, God promises he'll never leave us or forsake us, that he's with us to the end of the age. And we saw it, that he would provide us with our daily needs, that he would care for us, and we just saw miracles.
You have to look back and say, his hand is mighty.
His hand is mighty. He's given me a verse that I think sums up our life, and even in this stage with the movie, sums it up even more, and it's Ephesians 3:20, and my paraphrase is, God can do much, much more than anything we can ask or imagine through his for his glory and through his strength. And he's done that. He's fulfilled that.
Rebecca, you know, a lot of this is about you were sort of the tip of the spear for the family going out and starting a music career. You must have had some just overwhelming emotion that suddenly you're going to be thrust in, almost the family's going to be depending on you.
I don't think I was very aware of any of that at that point. You know, I think Mom put it, you know, hit the nail on the head that it was an adventure for us kids. We did feel that, and that God was taking care of us, and Mom and Dad had it. And so even when I would do auditions for different, you know, record labels and stuff, or I'd be singing at a church and record people would come, I didn't feel this weight of this has to work out, I'm carrying the family, because we were all pitching in. We were raking lawns and mowing yards and cleaning houses and babysitting, and I was doing a bit of singing, you know. So it was just, we were all pitching in, and I think there was a sense of community as a family. We were praying together, and I was not carrying at that point, yeah.
Unsung Hero is streaming right now. Well, I guess it's time to refill the popcorn bucket, and I'm going to find mine because we got a lot more on the way, including a film that stars me. Huckabee's Night at the Movies continues right after this. Welcome back to our special Night at the Movies, the latest installment in the hit faith-based film series God's Not Dead and God We Trust brings the world of faith into the world of
go
politics.
to this. No, go to this right here.
Oh, go back.
Here we go.
No, we're in the movies.
Oh, it's okay.
Come
on in, get your popcorn,
no,
sit down,
Okay,
have
I
a
gotta go.
seat.
I'll sit here.
Here they are.
Go ahead. No, you go.
Well, hey,
you go. Come on.
y'all want to watch the movie with me?
Yeah.
Oh, great. Thank you, Lori.
Sit on the car.
You know, in some ways, it almost mirrors my own personal journey from pastor to politics. I'm kind of excited because not only am I in this film, but part of it was shot right here in the Huckabee Theater. 5th in the series. I think it's the best. David, I think it's the best one you've done, and I am so thrilled for the message of this film. Give us an overview, what God's Not Dead and God We Trust is about.
It is about my character. I played Reverend Dave. He's back. and the incumbent passes, and there's a slot. There's only 4 weeks before the election, and nobody wants to run because politics is a dirty business, as well.
As I for sure know.
You've been through that.
Yeah.
And so, you know, and also because of, it kind of mirrors what the movie's about, is that Christians don't want to be involved in politics.
Yeah.
You know, there's this crazy stat that says 40 million American Christians don't vote in presidential elections.
40 million.
Yeah.
Which means that every single election would be turned if Christians just went and voted. They don't have to put out a sign or scream or yell or do anything other than just simply vote. That's it.
Just be involved.
Yeah.
Which is just voting. Like, that's the first step of just getting involved. And so that's the movie. And you know, lots of twists and turns. And the arch nemesis in the movie is all about stamping out God in culture and in our country. And unfortunately, there's a lot of truth to that going on right now, life imitating art.
It really does accurately depict what happens in a political world. And when I saw the film, my first thought was, you guys did great research. This is authentic. And people who haven't been involved in politics maybe won't recognize it, or they think, yeah, that's just the story they're telling. I'm telling you, you nailed it. Scott, you play a bad guy in this. You're not a bad guy. You're one of the best guys I know.
You're exactly right, Governor. I'm a great guy. But I've been playing good guys forever on television, and David came to me and said, do you want to do this role of a bad guy to help? The guy I play tries to take David down, to take the pastor down, because I'm working for an actor, gentleman, his name is Ray Wise, who's a fantastic actor. And that's what I do in the movie. And so we're always plotting against Dave and his army against our army. And it was a lot of fun. I mean, it was a lot of fun doing this movie.
What I think you guys capture very well is that the real battle that a lot of people will never see, they think that it's all political. The truth is, it's spiritual.
Yeah.
That's where the war is going on. And you do that without it being preachy, without it being churchy. It's a powerful film, and it just moves. When people see it, they're going to be amazed when it comes to the end, and they'll say, wow, we've only been here 10 minutes.
And the ending at the debate, and I've told David this, is absolutely fantastic.
You know, part of this film was shot right here in our theater, which we're very excited about because it was fun for us to be able to watch it happen. And I know we've got some just behind-the-scenes footage. We're watching this. So as we're watching this, as the cameras are rolling in and we're seeing kind of what happened when they filmed, Scott, I want to just present to you, when you first read this script, how did it strike you? And did you instantly say, I want to be in the film? Or did you have to kind of read it through and think, yeah, I don't know if I want to get in one of these faith-based films?
Oh, no. As soon as I read it, I wanted to do it because I believe in the mission of the movie. And as you may or may not remember, Governor, I spoke at the Republican convention for
I do
Trump
remember, yeah.
in 2016, and I knew that I was going to be canceled and blackballed and all that. I knew it, and I was okay with it. And doing this movie was just part of my journey in life, because my country is more important than me. My daughter is
wonderful.
My daughter is more important than me, and I will do whatever I can to keep this country what I remember it as, which was a God-fearing, respectful, law-abiding country. And you know, there's only a couple of things. I mean, you know, I'm God-fearing, powerful, prosperous, and safe. That's really all I want. And right now, we're none of those things. So when David offered this to me, I said, yeah, man, I'm here to help. I'm here to help the cause, absolutely.
Very fun to see this Huckabee set on the big screen. Up next, it's a powerful film that's based on the incredible true story of inmates in an Indonesian prison who found hope and faith through Christ, even while living on death row and facing execution by firing squad. I was joined by stars Kevin Sorbo and Cuba Gooding Jr. The last place one would think that there would be faith bubbling up is in an Indonesian prison.
Right.
So this is an unlikely place where God finds people and ends up finding a whole lot of people through those that he found.
That's right.
So walk us through a little bit of the plot. Cuba, I'll start with you. Just tell us, when we see this film, what's going to be the most surprising thing about it?
Well, the fact that it's based on true events. Kevin can tell you his character was incarcerated there close to 30-something years before he finally met his demise by a firing squad. And I play, I guess James Barrington and I play an amalgamation of certain aspects of inmates that had been in this prison, characters that had gotten caught up in drugs in Indonesia and then sentenced to death to set an example for the rest of the world not to bring drugs into the country.
And so, Kevin, when you first saw the script and knew what the film was about, was your first reaction is, yeah, I want to be in it, or nah, nobody will believe that that story really happened?
I was the latter. I said yeah right away. I love true stories.
I do too, yeah.
My character's an American that was down there in his late 20s. He was surfing. He got in a fight with a local, and he killed him. He got the death sentence down there, and he was in prison for a long time. And during that time, he was a total atheist. He found God, and he became a pastor while he was in prison.
In the prison?
In the prison. And up until he was executed in 2015, so it's pretty recent, actually, he spent the rest of his life in that prison preaching every day to other inmates and to the guards as well.
And through his ministry in that prison, did it have an impact? I mean, were there other people who came to Christ?
Oh, many.
And Cuba, I understand that as you've been a part of this film, it has had a profound impact on you on a personal level, just in the renewal of the faith that you've had since you were a child, but this really helped to kind of rekindle that fire.
I know that God has given me this gift to bring truth to emotion, and here it was finally another long-awaited opportunity to use my gift to have truth to emotion to a movie that is faith-based, that actually services Him. So it was one of those moments when I read the script and I said, I'm at a time in my life to let the world know that this is who I am, and this is my foundation, my spiritual foundation.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Well, more Night at the Movies continues with the hilarious Am I Racist? We have its star, Matt Walsh, after this short break.
Hey, we're in the movies. We can't. No, not right now. I'm sorry. No, not right now. We're in the movies. No, sorry.
Well, welcome back to our celebration of some of our favorite movies of the past year, even though I'm surrounded by some real numbskulls around here. Well, recently, I was joined by Matt Walsh, who went deep undercover and transformed himself into a certified diversity, equity, and inclusion expert with this hilarious spoof called Am I Racist? Where in the world did you get the idea to do this film about racism?
Well, we, our last film was What is a Woman, as you mentioned, and that was exploring gender ideology and basically how the world lost its mind when it comes to gender. And so then we thought, well, we want to make another movie, and what other area has the world seemed to lose its mind in? And that points immediately to race. But we thought, well, why is race a problem? Why, especially the last 4 years since the BLM riots in 2020, where is this coming from? Where is it arising from? Who's causing this problem? And it's these race hustlers, these grifters, the Robin DiAngelos of the world. And so we wanted to make this movie to expose those people, but we thought rather than just going and asking them questions, I'll go on a personal journey of exploration myself, which is totally sincere, obviously. I was really looking to, decenter my whiteness and look, in my job, I'm called racist all the time. Yeah. And for so many years, it just kind of rolled off my back. But then one day I just said, you know what, what if they're right? And so I need to go on a journey and find out. And that's kind of where the movie begins.
You got a lot of pushback from media people saying that you were taking advantage of people by going undercover. But I don't remember anybody getting upset with Sacha Baron Cohen when he did the Borat movies, which were hilarious.
In this movie, we were very intentional that we did not want to use this kind of disguise to embarrass normal people. We're looking to embarrass the elites. We want to embarrass people with PhDs next to their name people that are college professors and the so-called experts, the people that make millions of dollars selling books on this topic. We want to embarrass them, although I'm not embarrassing them. I'm only giving them an opportunity to embarrass themselves for our amusement.
And that's what I think is so incredible, because it wasn't that you were picking at them. You let them talk, and what they said is hilarious to everybody whose brain still functions. Matt, what was the craziest thing that you encountered when you're out there talking to these very, very sophisticated academics?
Well, there's a lot. I guess I don't want to give spoilers away, but some of this stuff has been reported in the media, so I guess, well, spoiler alert, but I'll just go ahead and say it. Probably the thing that sticks out to most people who've seen the film is we do eventually talk to Robin DiAngelo, who is the author of White Fragility, and which is kind of the Bible of anti-racism. She's the most prominent person in this field. And we were able to, towards the end of my journey, I was able to talk to her. And we had in mind going into that interview, into that scene, that I wanted to be able to use her ideas kind of against her, kind of one-up her, using her own logic. And the goal was, by the end of the scene, I wanted to see if I could get her to pay cash reparations to my black producer on the spot. And my black friend, Ben, who's a producer on the film, we called him in, we sat him down, and I gave her an opportunity to pay cash reparation. She was a little bit hesitant at first, but I just used some of her own arguments to her, and then eventually she gets up and she goes to her purse, she pulls out cash and gives it to the producer, pays reparations on the spot. And that was probably not even the craziest thing that happened in the movie.
You know, we're laughing about this whole issue of racism. I'm not making fun of the fact that racism is, for some people, real, and there has been racism in our culture and country, and it's hideous and evil, and nobody wants to defend that. And I want to make clear, we're making fun of the people who have made a living calling everybody a racist who really isn't a racist.
Absolutely.
So how do we as a society get to the place where we can sort of put the stiff arm on some of this nonsense and say, let's just be human beings and be Americans and love each other and be good neighbors?
And it's funny, what you just said is exactly what we hear from, we talked to a black car mechanic in New Orleans about all of this, and he gives that exact message. He says, well, the answer here is just to love each other. That's the way he looks at it. And for me, the answer is, it's similar to what Morgan Freeman said in a 60 Minutes interview about 20 years ago. And he was asked, what do we do about racism in America? And he said, stop talking about it. And it sounds kind of simple. And this is coming from a man who would have actually experienced real racism, given his age. But his message is, just don't obsess over it, and let's talk about other things, let people live their lives. Don't try to convince people that they're racist when they're not. Because at the end of the day, the only person who can tell me whether you are racist or whether anyone else is racist is you yourself. You know what's inside your own heart. And if you're saying that, I don't have those thoughts and feelings in my heart, then I believe you, and let's move on.
All right, it's time for a quick intermission. Hey, see what I did there? Well, anyway, up next, we're going to sit down with a young actor who's forging his way, have some, Lori, go ahead, who's forging his way through Hollywood. More of our special night at the movies is straight ahead when we come back, if I can get these people to leave my popcorn alone.
Hey, wait, pizza.
We're at a movie. You don't eat pizza at a movie? All right, we're back with our special night at the movies. Now, up next is our visit with the writer and producer of The Forge, Stephen Kendrick, and actor Aspen Kennedy, who stars as a high school graduate who needs a little help turning his life around. Now, before the show, I said I'm not even going to talk to Stephen. I've talked to him before. There's nothing exciting about him. But Aspen.
Yes.
This is a film, you shine, man. I mean, it's very powerful, and it's the story of a kid that needs a father figure.
Yes.
When you read this script, did you identify with it? Because I know that faith is a big part of your life, and you are a believer.
Yes.
So this film puts you in that kind of role, but when you read it, did you say, yep, I want to do this?
When I first read it, it truly showed me that God was so present in my life, even growing up, because like you said, I didn't have my father growing up, but I felt seen because I related to Isaiah so much of having a praying mother and the Lord being true to himself and being my Heavenly Father. And it's such a blessing to be a part of this project.
Stephen, talk to us about the development of the script, the film, and one of the things I always love about Kendrick Brother Productions is that the film always is accompanied with a study guide. There's something that after the film,
that's right.
You don't just walk out of the theater and say, oh, okay, that's great. But there's actually a follow-up.
Well, we believe that movies ought to not just be delicious and entertaining, but nutritious and life-changing, you know? And so we will spend months in prayer.
I like that.
And we'll spend months in prayer saying, Lord, what's on your heart? What direction do you want us to go in? And the Lord focused us back in on discipleship. It was Jesus's priority throughout his ministry. He ends by calling his disciples to go out and make more disciples. I think right now we have a generation that's digitally connected, but very relationally disconnected.
Yeah.
And this whole idea of not just preaching from a distance, but engaging people in close relationships, it's how Jesus modeled it. And so we show it in vivid display in the Forge. And it takes you on an emotional roller coaster. People are weeping in the theater. And when people walk out of seeing the Forge, they're either saying, I want to be discipled and learn how to fall in love with Jesus, or I want to go pour into somebody else and help them learn to fall in love with
Which is exactly what you can hope for.
Yeah.
Aspen, the role of Isaiah, this is a character who really goes the full spectrum of rebellion and anger, all the way to a point of resolve.
Yeah.
That means that as an actor, you have to really work through an extraordinary level of emotion. Was that the most challenging part of the role you play?
It was actually, it was a great challenge because it reminded me on a day-to-day basis of inviting the Lord in my heart to work through and to express his message, because it's such a powerful film. It glorifies the Lord, and so many hearts will be touched, so it just inspired me to stay in that place of reverence, to invite the Lord into my heart every single day. And every single scene we had prayers, and it just was a testament that it was an experience for me as well. It impacted my heart, and every time I see the screen, it touches my heart as well. So definitely was a blessing.
Longtime viewers are going to remember Coach Joe Kennedy, whose practice of praying after high school football games sparked an epic legal battle. It led to a historic Supreme Court victory for religious freedom. His story is told in the movie Average Joe. And Coach Kennedy, along with actor Eric Close, who plays the coach in the film, joined me to chat about the movie recently. Eric, you've done so many phenomenal projects. You're an acclaimed actor. There's nothing average about you or your career. You're playing a guy whose title in the movie is Average Joe.
Yeah, this guy's not average, yeah.
I was going to say, there's nothing average about him either, is there?
Not a chance, no.
Were you intrigued, first offered the script and read it and thought, yeah, I can do this, I want to do it?
Well, actually, I read his book, and I was so inspired by his story and just what he did, and willing to take on this challenge and at all costs. And I was so impressed by that, and how he and his wife just loved each other through it.
Joe, I mean, you and I have had conversations before. I've always admired the fact that you weren't trying to create a problem. You weren't trying to make a stir. You simply wanted to be able to express your faith, and it was originally just you. And the students wanted to join you. They did. And that got everybody all upset and in a wad. But ultimately, God used that whole scenario to get you to the Supreme Court, where you won an incredible landmark victory for religious freedom. I mean, I don't think you ever saw it going there, did you?
No, absolutely not. In fact, the first time we did the show together, I'm blaming you and God for all this.
I get blamed for a lot of stuff, Joe.
He was the one who told me to write the book, and so I think they're cohorts or something. They got something going on, but who knew it would ever come to this? This is insanely cool and weird.
And what's so great about this story is it's a story of hope.
Yeah.
It's a story of redemption, and it's for all Americans to go see this film. And they will be inspired by this man's story and his courage to just persevere, you know. And what I loved about what he did is he brought people together. He was a uniter in this. He wasn't trying to divide people. And he poured into those kids on that football team. He's not even really a football guy, but he said, I know that I can bring something valuable to this team. And what he did is he united a community, and he ended up uniting a nation and fighting for this country.
And unite a country. He really did. Well, more of our movie night is on the way. Hey, anybody else need maybe to top off?
Can you give me a diet Sour Patch?
Yeah. Cookies.
M&Ms.
Hot dog.
Yeah.
M&Ms. Hot dog. Yeah.
Hot dogs. It's a movie. It's
Hot dog
popcorn.
too.
Come on.
Sour Patch.
Anyway, we will be right back.
Chicken,
Trust me,
chicken.
we really will.
Who wanted the M&Ms? M&Ms, that's
With peanuts.
Peanuts.
Fried oysters.
I'm allergic to peanuts.
Nacho.
Diet Snicker.
Diet.
Oysters. For gosh sake. Welcome back to A Night at the Movies. Sound of Hope, the story of Possum Trot, is the true life story of how a small town minister started a revolution in the foster care system. It's one of the most inspirational films that I've seen all year, and I couldn't wait to chat with the film star, Demetrius Gross. It's getting rave reviews because it's such a powerful and personal story of a pastor and his wife in a tiny little town called Possum Trot. Let's face it, that is no metropolis.
Right. It's not exactly Manhattan.
Not exactly. East Texas town, little church, and they want to change the world one kid at a time.
One child at a time. No child left behind. That's the motto. And they put, faith in the forefront of their mission. Bishop W.C. Martin and First Lady Donna Martin, they have taught the world that love is really an action word. It's a verb.
You obviously, as an actor, were drawn to the film and wanted to be a part of it. What was it about its message that made you connect to it?
Well, just the integrity of the people that we were portraying, the fearless faith, and just that they actualized Scripture in their life. They weren't just, or they are not just talkers of the talk, but they're walkers of the walk. It's not...
I mean, they helped adopt with this little town, 77 children that were just foster kids that weren't in a family. Now they are.
And it's a huge problem in our country right now, amongst others, obviously. But if we can't look out for the most vulnerable amongst us, then what are we doing? Why are we in places of worship if we can't actualize our greatest call, and that's to care for those who are in the most dire of need? And that's what they did. But there's some levity in the movie too, Mike. It's not all just sadness and ardor because of the challenges sometimes that are involved in adopting children, but there's levity and there's beautiful moments. In fact, people say that you cry at this movie, but what they don't say is that you're actually crying tears of joy because it's such an upswing as the story gets told.
Well, there you have it. You've got plenty of movies to watch with your family this holiday season. We hope you have had a wonderful Christmas, and we pray that you have a safe and joyous New Year. Thanks so much for watching, and good night from everyone here at The Huckabee Show. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, I hope you will now. The button is just below this video, and there's a little bell next to it. If you click on those, YouTube will reluctantly start letting you know when we've got a new video uploaded.